Tyler James was hungry for fame. But when his obsession with going viral led him to turn a camera on his best friend, Alex Miller, the world watched a shocking crime unfold that blurred the line between content and cold-blooded murder. Tyler James had always been different from the other kids in his neighborhood. While most spent their time hanging out at the park, playing video games, or worrying about school, Tyler was glued to his phone. He lived for social media, especially TikTok, which had become his entire world. At 20 years old, he was still stuck in a small town where nothing exciting seemed to happen, and that feeling of being invisible ate away at him every day. His room was filled with ring lights, tripods, and notebooks overflowing with ideas. Yet none of them seemed to take him anywhere. He tried silly dances, quick jokes, even dangerous pranks, but nothing pushed him beyond a few hundred views. Every time he checked his feed, he saw creators his age gaining millions of followers overnight, their faces plastered across the internet. Tyler told himself it was unfair, that he deserved the same recognition. But deep down, he knew he was willing to do almost anything to make people notice him. The only person who never judged him was his best friend, Alex Miller. The two had grown up side by side, inseparable since childhood. Alex had always been the calmer one, the voice of reason when Tyler's wild ideas got too risky. But he also had a loyal streak, and that loyalty often pulled him into Tyler's videos. Whether they were filming skits in the backyard or sneaking into abandoned places for exploration content, Alex went along with it because he trusted Tyler. To Alex, it was all just harmless fun, something that gave his friend excitement. To Tyler, however, each video felt like a test, a step closer to breaking through the wall that kept him unknown. At night, when the glow of his phone was the only light in his room, Tyler would scroll endlessly, comparing himself to the stars of the platform. He studied their techniques, their thumbnails, the way they exaggerated everything to capture attention. Yet, even as he copied what worked for others, his own content stayed invisible. The frustration began to twist into something darker. Tyler started writing in his notebook about realism, about how the audience only cared when something looked too real to ignore. He thought about shock, about fear, about the raw reactions that couldn't be staged. Each passing week chipped away at the boundaries he once had. What had started as harmless entertainment was now turning into an obsession that left little room for empathy. Tyler convinced himself that he was destined to do something unforgettable, something no one else would dare. And Alex's presence in his life would soon become more than just friendship. It would become the centerpiece of his most dangerous idea yet. The moment Tyler stumbled onto the growing trend of dangerous stunts and staged crimes on TikTok, his mind began to race. These weren't just silly dances or jokes anymore. These were creators pushing the limits, making content that blurred the line between reality and fiction. He saw clips of fake kidnappings, pranks involving weapons, and staged emergencies, and each one racked up millions of views. The comments were filled with people debating whether they were real or fake, and that debate only drove the views higher. Tyler realized that people weren't just looking to be entertained, they wanted to be shocked, to be pulled into something they couldn't look away from. He became convinced that if he could pull off something so real that no one could question it, he would finally get the fame he had been chasing. Tyler's notebooks began to change. What once held lists of dance trends and skit ideas now filled up with darker concepts. He wrote about fear, about unpredictability, about creating a moment that no one else would dare attempt. He scribbled lines like "real reactions get real views" and circled them over and over. He studied the timing of videos that went viral and noticed that the most successful ones had something shocking within the first few seconds. He wanted that same effect, but bigger. Tyler knew he couldn't achieve it alone. He needed someone the audience would believe in, someone authentic, someone like Alex. Alex trusted him without hesitation, which made him the perfect subject. Tyler began framing ideas in ways that made them sound like harmless fun, so Alex would agree without asking too many questions. They had already filmed in creepy places, pretending to hear noises in the dark, so when Tyler suggested more extreme challenges, Alex didn't suspect much. Still, Tyler could sense his friend's unease. Whenever he mentioned using props like knives or fake blood, Alex hesitated, but his loyalty always pulled him back in. Tyler knew exactly how to use that loyalty. Over time, Tyler stopped seeing Alex as just a friend and started seeing him as a character in his story. In Tyler's eyes, Alex wasn't just helping with content. He was the key to creating a video that would change everything. The line between reality and performance began to blur in Tyler's mind, and what once would have felt unthinkable now seemed like destiny. Tyler had convinced himself that a shocking act wasn't just an idea, it was his ticket to immortality on the internet, and Alex's trust would be the very thing that allowed him to make it happen. The night Tyler chose for his plan was carefully calculated. He waited until midsummer, when the air was heavy and still, and convinced Alex to meet him at an abandoned parking garage on the outskirts of town. The place had already been a hotspot for urban explorers and amateur horror filmmakers, which made it the perfect setting for the kind of video Tyler wanted to create. He told Alex it was just another prank, a fake fight scene they could pass off as a challenge. To Alex, it sounded like nothing more than an edgy skit, something they had done plenty of times before. But Tyler had hidden the truth. For days, he had rehearsed in his head exactly how the night would play out, down to the camera angles and the moment the shock would happen. The garage was eerily quiet when they arrived, the only sounds coming from their footsteps echoing off the concrete walls. Tyler set up his phone on a tripod, adjusting the lens until it captured the perfect wide shot. He had brought along a kitchen knife, sharp and real, which he told Alex was just a prop. Alex laughed nervously, but didn't argue, still trusting that his best friend wouldn't put him in danger. To him, it was all for the sake of the video. For Tyler, it was the moment he had been waiting for. When the recording started, Alex played his part, pretending to argue and stumbling back as if the fight were real. Tyler followed the script at first, moving closer, raising the knife in a dramatic motion. But then, in one sudden decision, he broke the boundary between acting and reality. He lunged forward and drove the blade into Alex's chest. The sound of Alex's gasp filled the empty garage, sharp and haunting. He collapsed onto the cold floor, blood spreading across his shirt, his body twitching as he tried to breathe. For a brief moment, Tyler froze. He stared at his best friend, at the sight of something irreversible. But the shock faded quickly, replaced by a strange sense of triumph. The camera was still rolling, capturing every second. Tyler leaned toward it, whispering about how real it looked, already imagining the reaction of millions of strangers online. Instead of rushing to help, he adjusted the tripod slightly to keep Alex in frame, as if his best friend's dying body was nothing more than content for an audience he hadn't even earned yet. Tyler didn't waste time after the stabbing. He dragged the footage into his editing app, cutting the beginning to make the action hit faster and trimming the end to leave just enough ambiguity. He added captions like "the most real prank you'll ever see" and "wait until the end," knowing that curiosity was the fuel for views. When the final clip was posted to TikTok, he sat back and refreshed the page every few seconds. At first, the numbers ticked upward slowly, then the momentum exploded. Within hours, thousands of people had shared the video. Tyler's hands shook with excitement as he watched his follower count climb. For the first time, he felt like he was finally getting the attention he thought he deserved. But the comments were mixed. Many viewers cheered the realism, calling it the best prank they had seen. Others weren't convinced it was fake. They pointed out details, the way Alex's chest barely moved, the blood pooling too naturally, the absence of a cutaway shot. Debates raged in the comment sections, some insisting it was brilliant acting, others swearing it was a crime caught on camera. The more people questioned it, the faster the video spread. Tyler thought the controversy was exactly what he needed, but he underestimated how quickly suspicion could turn into evidence. Dozens of viewers reported the video to the platform, flagging it as violent and possibly real. Moderators removed the original post within a day, but by then, copies were already circulating across other accounts. Some users slowed down the footage, highlighting Alex's blank stare and limp body. Others claimed they recognized the location and began piecing together where the video had been filmed. One local TikTok user drove to the parking garage and live-streamed from outside, calling police to investigate. What Tyler thought was clever marketing had become a digital trail leading directly back to him. When officers entered the garage later that night, they found Alex's body exactly where it had fallen. The scene matched the footage down to the angle of the camera, which Tyler had left behind in his rush. It didn't take long for investigators to connect the video with his account. By the time police arrived at his house, Tyler was still awake, glued to his phone, refreshing his notifications as if likes and shares were worth more than the life he had just taken. The knock on the door signaled the end of his rise to fame, but Tyler didn't yet realize that the attention he craved had turned into evidence against him. The interrogation room was cold, with walls that seemed to press inward, yet Tyler sat in the chair as if it were a stage. His wrists were cuffed to the table, but his eyes gleamed with something closer to pride than fear. Detectives studied him, waiting for the panic, the regret, the breakdown that usually followed a crime like his. Instead, Tyler leaned forward, calm and steady, speaking about his video as though it were a piece of art. He explained how audiences craved authenticity, how no special effects could compete with the real thing. To him, Alex's death wasn't a tragedy, it was proof of his creativity. The officers were disturbed by his composure. He spoke not like a friend who had lost someone, but like a director satisfied with a finished film. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The video itself showed everything from the setup to the stabbing. His phone contained drafts, notes, and edits, each one spelling out his obsession with creating something unforgettable. The knife collected at the scene carried both his fingerprints and Alex's blood. Tyler didn't deny any of it. He openly admitted to what he had done, framing it not as murder, but as sacrifice for recognition. His lack of remorse shocked even the seasoned detectives, who had heard countless justifications before but never one so detached from basic humanity. When his trial began, the courtroom was packed. Journalists, locals, and even online personalities crowded in, eager to hear about the TikToker who killed for views. Clips of the interrogation leaked, sparking outrage across social media. Some painted Tyler as a monster, while a disturbing minority called him a genius for pushing boundaries. The prosecution presented the video frame by frame, dismantling his claim that it was performance art. The jury watched Alex's final moments in silence, their faces pale, their decision already forming long before closing arguments. The verdict was swift. Tyler was sentenced to life in prison, with no chance of parole. As he was led away, he still looked strangely satisfied, convinced that his name would never be forgotten. And in a way, he was right. Though the original video was erased from major platforms, fragments of it continued to surface online, shared in dark corners of the internet. Tyler became a symbol of obsession gone too far, his story retold in documentaries and whispered across forums. Yet behind the legend was the devastating truth: a young man's desperate hunger for fame had destroyed not only his best friend, but every chance of a life outside the shadow of his crime.